The Philippines has rejected plans for a U.S. presence at an airbase in the west of the country, which had been part of an offer made by the former government of President Aquino. Why the change of heart? Taiwan media has revealed that a number of universities has been signing commitments since 2010 not to include politically sensitive subjects for students coming from the mainland. Why has this blown up in a major row now? And the European Commission is investigating a $2.9 billion rail project which has been agreed between Hungary, Serbia and China. It violates EU rules. Welcome to The Point. I'm Li Xin. The Philippines has rejected American plans to build facilities at a military airbase that is nearest the majority of the islands disputed with China in the South China Sea. The Antonio Bautista airbase in Puerto Princesa, Palawan was on an original list of locations offered by the Philippines to the United States military under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. But the government of Rodrigo Duterte has withdrawn this specific base from the list drawn up by his predecessor, while still allowing facilities to be built at two other bases in Pampanga, Central Luzon and Cagayan de Oro in Mindanao. What is behind this change of policy? To get the background on this, I'm joined live by Professor Gov't Haydarian, a foreign affairs analyst at De La Salle University in Manila. Professor Dalawan, thank you for joining us. Now, what is behind the calling of the building of U.S. military bases on Palawan? Help us understand the situation here.
Well, over the past 2 months, at least, there has been some confusion on whether the Duterte administration in the Philippines is going to give the green light or go ahead for the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, which was a carryover from the previous administration to be implemented. Initially, in early February 7, Secretary of Defense of the Philippines, Delfino Lorenzana, said that 3 major bases will be opened up to the Americans under the EDCA. One, of course, in the Palawan, the Bautista Air Base, and 2, the Basa Air Base and Lumbia Air Base in Pampanga and Cagayan de Oro. So initially the plan was to allow the Americans to preposition their equipment there, so long as those equipments have to do with humanitarian relief and disaster operations, and of course also to develop the facilities in the area. That is what Americans are allowed to do under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, but they're not allowed to build permanent structures in that area and create a permanent base in that area. But President Duterte, over the past month or so, has said that while he may be okay with the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement to be implemented, he's not okay with Americans prepositioning equipments there, because he feels that if America prepositions equipments there, that will violate the Philippine sovereignty and of course could undermine the Philippines' improving relationship, detente with China. So I think eventually there was a compromise, because the people within the Philippine military, I think including Defense Minister Lorenzana, wanted this Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement to push through, but the president wanted certain reconfigurations. So I think the final compromise was the Americans will be allowed to build facilities in the 2 air bases that are not facing directly China in the South China Sea, because the Bautista Air Base in Palawan is the closest one to the Spratly chain of islands, where China has a significant presence because of reclamation activities.
Yeah. When President Duterte first came into power, he originally talked about scrapping altogether the EDCA, but now it seems that he has backtracked from that. Why the change of heart?
Yeah. It's not so much a change of heart, but I think the president accepting certain basic reality. I think the first thing that he has recognized is that while it's important for the Philippines to improve relationship with China, it is also relevant for the Philippines to maintain robust security cooperation with the United States as a hedging strategy if ever things go south there in the South China Sea, if things go wrong in the South China Sea, because the Philippines doesn't have its own military capabilities to defend its interests. The second reason is would, if for the lack of a better term, let's just say the pro-US lobby. America is very influential among the Philippine security establishment and also among the Filipino public. So I think even if the president himself wanted the Philippines to have less and less military cooperation with the US and to significantly downgrade that alliance, there was a very robust and concerted pushback by people within the military, within the security establishment, and the greater public, including the business community that is close to America, to at least make sure that the foundations of our military cooperation continue and that the EDCA will be implemented. So it's not a change of heart, it's more of this ongoing back, pull and push that is going between the president, who wants more freedom from the United States and more engagement with China, and on the other hand, you have this military and security establishment who want to maintain strong relations with US because they still have concerns with China in the South China Sea.
Now, to your knowledge, what has been the reaction from these forces that you have just described towards this latest decision not to build the airbase on Palawan? And secondly, we know that the Duterte government has indeed been trying to improve relations with China as it needs the kind of Chinese investment to build infrastructure, for instance, a railway project linking much of the Philippines. So is Philippines trying to play a two-sided game to keep its relationship with China and with the United States good at the same time?
Well, I mean, first of all, most ASEAN countries do that, right? They maintain strong economic relationship with China, but either explicitly or quietly and surreptitiously, they maintain strong military relationship with the United States. That's the case with Vietnam, with Malaysia, Singapore, among others. So this is not unique to the Philippines. But what's unique in the Philippines is that even if it's a treaty ally of the United States, you now have a president who's very determined to find a common understanding with China. But so far, what has happened is that, on one hand, in fairness to President Duterte, his threats to downgrade relations with US has also partly materialized and in favor of China. For instance, two major military exercises, the FIBLEX amphibious exercises and the Karat exercises, which were very much directed towards China in the South China Sea, have been cancelled. In fact, the Balikatan exercises, which involves thousands of Filipino and American troops annually, the fate of that exercise is also now hanging in the balance. So a significant amount of joint military exercises, interoperability building exercises between the two allies have been downscaled. Not to mention, Duterte has disallowed Americans from using Filipino bases to conduct so-called freedom of navigation operations, which are clearly targeted against China more than any other country. And lastly, he has cancelled any plans for joint patrols with America. So some of his threats against distancing from US and engaging with China has come true. But the fact of the matter is that so far, as far as the South China Sea is concerned, the Philippines and China have not finalized any agreement. And as far as China's pledges of major investments in the Philippines is concerned, they are yet to materialize. So now we're still in the level of conversation, but I think Duterte has still significantly downgraded relationship with America. But then again, much will also depend on how Trump and Duterte also reset their bilateral relations, because there's some slight possibility that under Trump administration, US will be less critical of Duterte's human rights record, his war on drugs, and in exchange, Duterte might be open to restoring some of the cancelled or downgraded aspect of their bilateral security relationship. So yes, you're right. To a certain degree, Duterte is planning to play the two sides, but this is going to be a very difficult balancing act. But, you know, this is what all ASEAN countries have been doing anyway, so there's nothing unique with what Duterte is doing here.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Haydarian, joining us from Manila. And you have been watching The Point with me, Liu Xin, on CGTN. I'll be back right after this. Recently, media in Taiwan revealed that Shixing University, a private university famous for journalism and communication courses, has signed a commitment not to include so-called politically sensitive subjects in the curriculum for university students from the Chinese mainland who were admitted to the university in February. Now, in the commitment paper, there are words like no political sensitive activities involved in the curriculum, and students should not join in any event relating to One China, One Taiwan, Two Chinas, as well as independence of Taiwan. Later, at least 30 more universities of the 160 or so higher educational establishments on the island were reported to have made similar commitments to mainland students before they started their studies in Taiwan, including Taiwan University, the most well-known university in the region. Now, the government of the current leader Tsai Ing-wen has said that academic freedom, and I quote, is an important area for democracy, and universities shouldn't agree to set conditions. And the Education Authority in Taiwan has declared that Shixing University and other 5 universities has broken the regulation on cross-strait relations, and those universities would be charged 500,000 new Taiwan dollars for that violation. So why is the government of Taiwan so focused on this case, and did the universities break the regulations on cross-strait relations? I'm joined in the studio by our current affairs commentator, Professor Zhang Ying-Nian. But before I talk to Professor Zhang, let's first cross over to Taiwan, where Professor Yeo Ping Cheng is standing by. Professor Yeo, he is Associate Professor of the Department of Public Administration of Taipei University. Professor Cheng, thank you for joining us today. Professor Cheng?
Okay.
Professor Cheng, yes. First of all, please explain a bit to us the situation. Exactly what is the story all about?
Well, the whole story broke out a few days ago when one of the universities didn't know how to sign a document of this kind. So they asked for an example. And it's our understanding that somebody over the other side of the Taiwan Strait faxed over a copy of the SZUNOMAR University. And that somehow fell into the DTP's hands. And then the story broke out. The thing is, the Ministry of Education here in Taiwan made a big fuss over this. And they tried to exaggerate the whole case and made it into a case in which Taiwan has been sold out or Taiwan's interests have been damaged. But the fact is, there's been nothing wrong with that. It is at best a memorandum of understanding. It's maybe no more than a statement of exchange objectives and good faith in arranging exchange programs between 2 universities. From a legal standpoint, this is not a contractual document. So there's nothing that is in violation of any regulations of the cross-strait relations. And it has been there. It has been in practice for many years. And it worked well and served the interest of university on both sides. So from my viewpoint, the reason why DTP, the Taiwan authorities, have made such a big fuss over this matter is that it is trying to politically intimidate the universities from engaging further exchange programs with mainland universities.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Yeo Ping Cheng, joining us from Taipei University for that insight. Professor Zhang, now, what is your reaction when you heard about the news being blown up over this piece of paper that has been there for over 10 years?
I agree with Professor Zhang that this is a very simple event. A document being signed and transferred back and forth as a prerequisite to admit students from mainland China to attend Taiwan institutions of higher learnings. It is not at all a statement emphasizing one China policy or that. It is not something to promote a political agenda behind the curtain. It is just something to satisfy needs on both sides. But Green Camp, with a leader of Tsai Ing-wen on the top, they're trying to twist the facts and make this sort of a maneuver, on the mainland China side to push the one China policy. I think is ridiculous. Let me put it this way: I think education exchange between the two sides is extremely beneficial to Taiwan for the following reasons. Number one, Taiwan has many higher institutions, facilities, and teachers. They stay idle because they don't have enough students to fill the seats. So why not bring students from China to do just that? Secondly, this will help Taiwan's economy, right? Students coming over, they pay the tuition, the expenses and so on. But that is not important. Another important outcome or advantages of having this arrangement is to have the people from mainland China to have personal experiences watching society in Taiwan nearby, so they could appreciate more of its political system, freedom of speech, and so on and so forth. Therefore, these people may become a bridge in the future to help people from Taiwan to go to mainland China for businesses. So everything combined is a beautiful win-win situation. And I don't think Tsai Ing-wen's approach or plan to use this as a reason to crush KMT, to blame Ma Ying-jeou would work at all.
Let me ask this technical question. I don't know whether you are able to explain to us. Why did the students from Chinese mainland needed this piece of paper to begin with?
Well, I understand that on the Chinese side, there are certain formalities. I think this is not a national plan behind the whole scheme, but just this paper received by the Taiwan universities. They said, no, we agree this. Our instructions would not involve political sensitivities. That's all right. It's not a government document to affect both parties.
So it was not legally binding. It was not an official document either.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I think it's a symbolic gesture on the mainland, on the Taiwan side, to accept this invitation or the suggestion, and nothing more than that.
And the students probably needed a kind of paper like this to get the permission, the travel documents approved to go and study in Taiwan. So what about the accusation that such practice is breaking the regulations on cross-strait relations? Is there a certain provision in that regulation which says that no universities must do that?
I don't think at all. I think the claim on the Green Camp side is to say that by signing the paper is a violation of the rules. Mention a university on Taiwan side accepted this plan, and that is contradictory to the national interest of Taiwan, which is not true at all.
What do you see as the ultimate goal of Tsai Ing-wen in picking this educational exchange?
Several things. Use this,
but the most important one
is to blame Ma Ying-jeou administration to further drive KMT to the bottom, to continue the domination of political administration in Taiwan. That's all. Selfish purposes interpreted in this act, which would not work, which would not prove to be everlasting at all.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang Yingnian, joining us here in the studio. Now, these commitment papers have been in place in some 30 universities in Taiwan since 2010 and were never a cause for concern. Now, all of a sudden, they're interpreted as breaking the kind of so-called academic freedom. Taiwan's government is sparing no effort at undermining previously agreed steps in the path to eventual reunification. I would like to suggest that Tsai put her energy into addressing the real important issues. After the sharp drop in tourists from the mainland, students could be the next group of people discouraged from coming to Taiwan. You're watching The Point. I'll be back right after this. Welcome back. The European Commission is investigating the $2.9 billion Belgrade-Budapest rail project, which has been agreed between Hungary, Serbia and China as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. The Commission is assessing the project's financial viability and whether it violates EU rules requiring public tenders for large transport projects. The European Commission already initiated proceedings against Hungary over the train line last May. At that time, the Commission suspected corruption in the deal and irregularities in the tender procedures. It also sought clarity on what role the Hungarian National Railways company could play in the consortium with its Chinese counterparts. The European Commission thinks Hungary should hold a majority stake in the project instead of the 15% it currently holds. Did China really break EU procurement rules? What can we learn from the EU Commission's probe into the project? I'm joined on the line by AGNES SZUNOMAR, a research fellow at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Ms. SZUNOMAR, thank you for joining us today. First of all, let me tell the audience that this railway line will be upgrading a 350-kilometer railway line linking Budapest and Belgrade, and that will shorten the travel time between these two cities from 8 hours to 3. And it's reported that the project will ultimately connect the port of Piraeus in Greece with the heart of Europe. So, Agnes, what exactly is the significance of this railway for Hungary and for China?
Well, I think that it's important for both sides. It is one of the flagship projects of China's One Belt, One Road initiative, and it is also important for the eastern part of Europe to have a more developed infrastructure. So from this point of view, it's a really vital issue for that part of Europe.
Now, we know that this project was originally announced in 2013 and the agreement three countries in 2015. According to the reports, the investigation is mainly focused on Hungary because Hungary is a member of the European Union, whereas whereas Serbia is still a candidature member. What exactly is this investigation all about? What is Hungary accused of probably violating?
Well, according to EU rules, public tenders must be offered for large transportation projects in order to assure the application of transparency, non-discrimination and also equal treatment. So it is absolutely regardless of the nationality of the investor or the investors. If there were no bid award, it means that it may violate these economic competition rules. Regarding the influence it could have on certain companies in the region, I think that companies shall expect longer procedures, more bureaucratic procedures. So if we compare the European Union to locations without public procurement regulations, I have to say that it takes a bit more time to make businesses make investment projects, for example, in this region.
Now, what is your prediction of where this investigation might be going? I mean, do you see that the Hungarian company is under a lot of pressure that it really didn't do something correctly, or you think that they really have a point in what they did in terms of this project? I mean, for instance, the Hungarian company said they included an annex which explained that they consulted with Brussels before they signed this agreement. Is that annex explanatory in this case?
Well, we don't know exactly all the details because it is not public so far. But as far as the Hungarian position is concerned, there is a consortium with 3 members, 1 Hungarian and 2 Chinese members, and Hungary maintains that no competition rules were violated, since the agreement says that this consortium cannot play a direct role in the implementation of the project. They agreed to nominate companies on each side, on both Hungarian and Chinese side, to cooperate on the development, on the further development of the project. And as you already mentioned, there is some kind of an appendix or an annex which somehow explains how this agreement can be how this agreement won't violate this public procurement obligation. So normally it should be in line with the EU rules, but we don't know because the public could not see this appendix so far.
What's your analysis of the motivation behind this probe? Do you think that the EU has some political reason behind launching this probe, or is really purely looking at the matter as the matter itself is concerned?
I think that this investigation is initiated by Brussels, focusing on the compliance of public projects. So it has more to do with Hungarian European Commission relations than with European-Chinese relations, I have to say. So the main focus is not the investor or the investment itself, rather the compliance or the non-compliance of the EU rules. So I think that it won't affect, at least not deeply, the relations between Beijing and Brussels. It has more to do with the relation between Budapest and Brussels.
Thank you very much, AGNES SZUNOMAR, joining us from Budapest. And that is my discussion about the first ever rail project on the China's Belt and Road Initiative. Now, my last point is coming up right after this. Well, there it is, my last point. When the agreement was signed, it was a showcase of China's Belt and Road Initiative, and it highlighted the huge potential for cooperation between China and countries along the Belt and Road route. As China's first railway project in Europe, to run into trouble this early on is not a surprise, and lessons will inevitably be learned for the future. So it's also a reminder of this kind of regulatory or maybe even political pressure that China will encounter in bringing the initiative forward. That's all for this edition of The Point. As always, follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle shown on the screen, The Point with LX. And you can watch our previous shows on the CGTN channel of YouTube. Click on the playlist and look for The Point with Liu Xin. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.